Different types of video games are releasing every day. Most of them are just some copies of each other, while some of them actually are trying to add a new thing to gaming world. I don't mind the companies that make same game over and over. In the end, gaming is a business and companies should ride the trends to make more money. I love the games that are trying to be different. I don't have a favorite genre, so I play random games to just enjoy gaming. Now let's go to the point. What if I tell you a game exists that you can ride a bike while meeting with Santa Claus? Or jumping from a volcano to an ice mountain while backflipping with a bicycle? Or being in the middle of shooting a movie and two giant futuristic spiders are lasering you while you're on a mini bike? These are just a small part of these games. I am another game reviewer and you're watching a review of a crazy series called Trials. Imagine if you're watching a motorcycle trials race, but with dragons, spaceships, volcanoes, and teddy bears. Trials is a platform racing game developed by Red Links. It involves a motorcycle rider in a 2.5D world. 2.5D is basically a 3D world, but with 2D mechanics, like Assassin's Creed Chronicles. Trials is about traversing obstacles under the influence of simulated physics. First Trials game was released as a browser game in 2000. The gameplay was somewhat similar to Mastertronic's 1987 hit Kickstart 2. I started playing Trials games in 2010, I think. At that time, I was playing so much browser games. The only two games that I ever played the most were Sony games and bike games. The first Trials was my favorite between all the Flash games. At least most of them. One day I was searching Google to find a cool bike game to buy and I saw Trials 2. Trials 2 was released in 2007. At that time it was developed and published by Red Links itself. In March 1, 2008 they released a remake of that game called Trials 2 2nd Edition on their website. In May 28, 2008, they published it on Steam. Next Trials game was Trials HD. This game was published by Microsoft for Xbox 360 in August 12, 2009. Because of the power of Xbox 360, this game had more realistic graphics. Then they released a much more goofy and realistic version of Trials called Trials Evolution for Xbox Live Arcade in 2012, a game called Trials Frontier for smartphones in 2014, Trials Fusion was released in 2016 and Rising in 2019. These two games are very similar in mechanics but different in environments. Finally guys, the history class is over. Now let's talk about the games. The main point in these games is going from point A to point B, but there is a timer that if you finish faster, you will get better medals. There are 3 medals for normal players, bronze, silver, gold, and 2 medals for pro players, platinum and diamond. The fun fact, only 0.00002% of Trials Rising players earn diamond medal on regular racetracks. If you have a party or a meeting or something and it's getting boring, just play some Trials. The local and online experience in these games is so enjoyable and unique. You can ride just one bike with your friend or race them in racing tracks. You can even watch a replay or race your best record. You hate yourself? Don't worry, because you can race everyone's best record in every track that you like, even the best player. But that way, you will hate yourself more. So watch out. The first Trials game was a normal 2D Flash game, but much more cooler. It had a good graphics, at least for a Flash game, even in 2010 that I played it. But when I played Trials 2, things got serious. I felt like a hungry lion that saw a sleeping hunt. Just imagine how much a bike nerd will enjoy a game that have a 3D biker in a Trials-like obstacle course. Because of the power of Xbox 360, Red Lynx was able to make a more realistic game called Trials HD. Trials HD was not just a more realistic game, it introduced a really cool feature called Map Editor. Map editors exist in new Trials games too, and they involved so much for each new game that released. This feature is my favorite thing in these games. I will talk about it later. Trials Evolution, like its name, was an evolution for the series. The levels and environment were unique, unexpected, different, and enjoyable. You could play as a ball to finish a fully 3D course in a 2.5D bike game. Just look at its cover. Isn't it the coolest thing you saw in your life? The maps were not in a salon or a room. You had a full world to explore. Trials Fusion was the 5th game from this series and the first one that released on PlayStation, because its publisher was Ubisoft. This game was a follow-up for Trials Evolution. It is a futuristic version of Trials, and it is the best Trials for me. The futuristic and fantasy maps and bikers aside, the music in this game is enough for me to fall in love with it. Just listen to this. You can't be a Ubisoft game series and don't have a spin-off that called Blood Dragon. First, Far Cry Blood Dragon, and no Trials of the Blood Dragon. I think there is more Blood Dragon thing in Ubisoft, but I don't remember them. Or it's just these two and I write this to make my text cooler. I don't know. If you know all of them, please tell me in the comments. But this game is actually a crossover between Far Cry and Trials. This game have a really different feature in it that other Trials games don't have. It's a story. This game maybe don't have a map editor, but the story is cool enough to fill that void. The story is continuing the Far Cry Blood Dragon's story. We play as Far Cry's main character's children. If those things were not cool enough, in this game there's some level that you aren't riding a bike and you need to do parkour to finish the levels. Map design in this game is better than all Trials games. The important point about this game is that it never wants to be a next version of Trials games and compete with Fusion. This game wants to be the best at what it is. Last thing that I should say about this game is that you can drive a truck or a RC car or fighting a monster or do whatever you want. I think it's enough for this. Just go and play it. I need to say that this game is not great. The mechanics in this game aren't that good. Do you know what is worse than this? Having great mechanics, but it's not fun. Let's talk about the last chapter of this series, that is Trials Rising. Trials Rising isn't a bad game at all, at least in multiplayer. But my problem with it is the fact that this game wants to be a better version of Trials Fusion. It have the same mechanics of the Trials Fusion, but the maps are boring, at least for me. And I like the Trials Fusion old school level selection more than Trials Rising sponsored tracks. But it is just me, maybe you will like it. But don't worry at all for the level designs in these games, because like I said before, this game have a really advanced map editor. Who needs Sackboy or Dreams when Trials exist? When I say advanced, I mean a place with developers access. You're making a track at the same place that developers made the single player tracks. From placing obstacles to animating your rider and changing the camera and make your custom game. If you don't want to make a track, don't worry at all, because hundreds of thousands of people already made tracks for you to just play and enjoy. So if you're bored, if you like bikes and grappling hooks and monsters, I suggest you Trials games because it's pure fun.